Good day, everyone. I am Teacher Lobi. I am here to guide you to sharpen your skills in mathematics. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Mathematics Quarter 1 Module 8, Estimating the Square Roots of Whole Numbers and Plotting Irrational Numbers. For this module, it is divided into two lessons. Lesson 1 is Estimating the Square Root of a Whole Number to the nearest hundredths. And for Lesson 2, Plotting Irrational Numbers on a Number Line. We have the objectives. Number 1 is Estimate the Square Root of a whole number to the nearest hundredth. And number 2, plot irrational numbers or square roots on a number line. For the what I know, make it sure that you're going to answer the pre-assessment for you to determine whether you have already background knowledge on these lessons. After that, we may proceed to the discussion proper, to the part of the module which will start with what's in. So from our previous module, you have already learned about principal roots and irrational numbers. Then you also know how to evaluate square roots that are perfect squares. But what if the whole number given is not a perfect square? How can we find the square root of the number? So what are the different ways or methods that we can use to look for the answers? So these are some of the questions which we will answer once we understand the key concepts of estimating square roots of a whole number to the nearest hundredths. So in here, for what's in, let's recall, try to answer 1 to 10. Okay, you're just going to find the square root and cube root of each number. Starting with number 1, which is the square root of 25. Number 2 is square root of 64. Number 3 is square root of 169, followed by square root of 100. The number 5, what do you think is the square root of 289? For number 6, the square root of 400. Number 7, the cube root of 8. Number 8 is the cube root of 27. Number 9 is the square root of 196. And finally, for number 10, you have the cube root of 1000. So from this given activity, were you able to name the two consecutive integers between the given square roots? So that would be the answer, the question that you need to answer. Now, how about if you are tasked to find the estimate value of the given square roots that are not perfect squares? So, kung titignan nyo sa inyong mga sagot from 1 to 10, these are perfect squares or perfect cubes. So, ano naman ang gagawin natin? Paano na kung hindi sila perfect square or perfect cube? Ano ang mga method na kailangan nating malaman o pag-aralan para makuha natin ang square root or cube root of a given number? So, let's continue our discussion. Now, let us try to estimate the square roots of a whole numbers to the nearest hundredths. So as we have here, we have 5 examples that we're going to estimate each square root to the nearest hundredths. So nearest hundredths, it means 2 decimal places. Okay? But before that, so in here, when you are finding the square root of a perfect square number using a calculator, we probably notice that the answer is a whole number. On the other hand, each time we find the square root of numbers that are not a perfect square, we will see several digits after the decimal point. So, siya ay non-terminating and non-repeating decimal kapag hindi perfect square. Okay? Yung ating hinahanap, yung square root. Now, to determine the approximate value of the square root of a number that is not a perfect square, a series of estimation is made. So, how is that? Let us answer the first one, which is square root of 7. So, paano natin mahanap ang kanyang square root? So, for step 1, hanapin daw yung mga perfect squares na closest. Okay? So, closest, yung isa is less than, at yung isa naman is greater than sa given number, which is 7 in our example. So, since yung 7 is hindi naman perfect square, kailangan natin hanapin yung 2 perfect square that is closest to 7. At ano yung mga yon? That is 4 and 9. Diba? 4, that is a perfect square, wherein 4 is factors niya 2 and 2. And then 9, 3 and 3. Okay, so therefore, sulat muna natin, square root of 4. Siyempre, less than siya. Less than, because square root of 7 is greater than square root of 4, but less than square root of 9. Then, let us find the square root of 4, that is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. So, therefore, square root of 7 is between 2 perfect squares, okay, which is the square root of 2 and 3. Thus, square root of 7 lies between 2 and 3. Since 7 is closer to 9 than 4, we know that square root of 7 is closer to 3 than 2. Then step 2, make an educated guess to one decimal place and try it. So since we know na ang square root of 7 is much closer to 3 than 2, then ang gagawin natin kasunod is square numbers closer to 3 with one decimal place. So ito magta-trial and error tayo. Okay? So for instance, mag-i-start tayo sa 2.5 raised to the power of 2. Then so on and so forth hanggat mahanap natin yung pinaka-closest, pinaka-malapit sa square root of 7. So kapag minultiply natin 2.5 sa sarili niya, this will be the product. 2.6 to itself is 6 and 76 hundredths. 2.7 to itself is 7 and 29 hundredths. 2.8 to itself is 7 and 84 hundredths. Now, as we can see, square root of 7 lies between 2.6, okay, and 2.7. Ito yung range niya, diba? Dito natin makikita ang 7. So, take note, hindi na natin kinuha yung square ng 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. Hindi na siya necessary kasi yung square niya ng 7 is mas malapit sa 3. Kaya we start with 2.5 above. Then, finally, in step 3 is we're going to decide which is closer. Since 7 is closer to 6.76 compared to 7.29, and 6.76 is the square root of 2.6, then estimate further by squaring the numbers 2.61, 2.62, 2.63 hanggang 2.65. Okay, and so forth. If hindi nyo pa rin mahanap yung closest to 7. So as you can see, kanina 1 decimal place lang tayo. Ngayon 2 decimal places na. Then after squaring 2.61 up to 2.65, now let us try to look. Alin dito ang pinakamalapit sa 7? Okay, as we can see, 7 is parang much closer dito sa 7.0225. Okay, so therefore, the square root of 7 is 2.65. Okay, since siya yung pinakamalapit, nearest hundredths, closest to square root of 7. Then, you may try to read also example number 2, finding the square root of 44. Step 3 for finding the square root of 44. Then another example, we have square root of 125. We have also here step 1, step 2, up to step 3. Yan. Try to read the solution. Then you may also try first it sa inyong sarili. And then after that, kapag nasagutan nyo na, then you may try to refer, okay, in this video kung tama ba yung nakuha ninyong sagot. That would be the best way for you to determine whether you really understand how to estimate the square root of a given number to the nearest hundredths only. Then finally, for your step 3, then another example, finding the square root of 263. You have there from step 1 to step 2. Then finally, proceeding to step 3. Another example, finding the square root of 73. You have here step 1 and step 2. You may post the video for you to understand well. Pwede niyong basahin ng paulit-ulit hanggang sa maunawaan ninyo. Then, proceeding to step 3. So, did you find the same answer as was reflected here? Then, syempre, para mas maunawaan niyo yung lesson, you may try to answer what's more in your module. Ayan. Para mas maunawaan ninyo. So, yung module na-upload ko sa ating mga GC is different yung what's more, but then the content is still the same. Okay? You may also try to answer the given here, ayan, which will help you para mas maunawaan ninyo ang pagkuha ng square root to the nearest hundredths through estimation. You may also try to answer this given activity wherein you're going to decipher the code below to find the answer to the given trivia. Wherein you're just going to estimate the square root of a whole number to the nearest hundred. So, the question is, what animal has the largest heart? Ayan. So, hahanapin nyo lang yung square root ng mga sumusunod to the nearest hundreds. So, usually, yung mga sagot is nandito lang. Halimbawa, letter A, the answer is 8.19. Therefore, you're going to write letter A here. Then, after answering all that was given here, you will find or you will decipher the code and finally answering this given question kung ano daw ba ang hayop na merong pinakamalaking puso. Ano nga kaya yan? Of course, you also have in your module what I have learned part, wherein you're just going to answer several questions, give your solutions or explanations. Now, we will proceed to plotting irrational numbers on a number line. So, ibig sabihin, igagraph na natin mga irrational numbers sa number line. So, saan ba natin sila makikita? In a number line. Actually, plotting numbers on a given number line is just locating a specific location. Okay? Halimbawa, saan ba natin makikita ang Kuya Po Public Market? Okay? So, if you know the location, then you can easily determine kapag pinakita sa inyo yung mapa, makikita nyo agad, maipo-point nyo agad kung nasaan ang Kuya Po Public Market. Halimbawa naman, saan makikita ang 7-Eleven sa may bayan ng Kuya Po? Okay, so just like that. Now, let us see here examples. So, for the first one, we're going to locate and plot square root of 3 on a number line. So, saan ba na natin makikita ang square root of 3? Sa number line. So, una, dapat alam muna natin anong mga number ang between 1 and between square root of 3, mga perfect square. That is between square root of 3. Syempre, we have 1. Kasi 1 times 1 is 1. And then 2 times 2 is 4. So, that 1 is less than, okay, and then yung 2, that would be the greater 1, greater number, greater square, that is between square root of 3, that is 1 and 2. Okay? So, therefore, kung gagawa tayo ng number line, ayan, 0 and 1, 1, 2, 3. So, magkakaparehas lang dapat yung kanyang distance from each other, bawat numbers natin. So, as we can see, between 1 and 2 lang siya. So, dito lang natin siya makikita. Okay? Then, remember yung kaninang pinag-aralan natin. Kailangan nating hanapin yung estimation ng square root of 3. Okay? So, we're going to apply step 1, step 2, and then step 3. Now, what is the square root of 3? by the process or the method that we have learned from the previous part of this video. Exactly. Square root of 3 is equivalent to 1.73 or 1 and 73 hundredths. So, ibig sabihin, sobra siya sa kalahati, kaya medyo iusog lang natin siya ng konti. Then, we have now the location. Okay? We already plot square root of 3, which is an irrational number, in a number line. What about square root of 21? O, ulitin natin. Step 1, hanapin muna natin yung mga integers that is between square root of 21. Perfect square between 21. So, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25. Okay, we have there 4 squared and 5 squared. Okay, so therefore, square root of 21 is between two integers, which is 4 and 5. Then after that, apply step 1, step 2, and step 3 for us to determine the estimate value of the square root of 21, and we will arrive with the answer, which is exactly square root of 21 is equivalent to 4.58 or 4 and 58 hundredths. Kaya, so since 4.58 lang siya, almost medyo malapit lang siya sa kalahati. Kaya medyo nakausog lang ng konti sa pagitan ng kalahati ng 4 and 5. So we have here is square root of 21. Now, try to answer this part of the module where I am. We have here numbers 1 to 5. So, saan kaya sa mga letters na to, okay, is the corresponding square root of these given numbers? Try this. Then, maybe you will try to determine kung naunawaan nyo ba yung ating lesson 2. You may also try this part to locate me. Okay, ilolocate nyo lang. Ngayon naman, it's time for you to plot the points on a number line. Find the square root of square root of 18. Ayan, saan kaya siya makikita? Remember, una, hanapin muna natin yung two integers, two perfect squares that is between square root of 18. Then after that, we apply the step 1, step 2, step 3 in finding the estimated square root of a given number in the nearest hundredths for us to easily plot the points in our number line. Then also, pwede din naman kayong gumamit ng calculator for you to check easily if your given answer o yung mga nahanap nyong answer for the square root of a given number is really correct. Okay? After that, don't try to forget to answer the assessment part in your module for you to determine whether you already gained the knowledge for this lesson 1 and 2 of module 8.